better than me at it, they are. Anyway, I'll tell you how that went. We had a couple of dramas, let's just say. So we'll get to that later. First, though, it's time to introduce my guests in the studio tonight, Lee and Josh. Now, Lee has written a book called Break the Silence, which tackles the subject of male victims of domestic abuse. And, of course, the title, as you would guess, as it suggests, is about getting it out there to be talked about. It's a difficult subject. It's often the case where men do not want to be taught to talk about it or even admit to it, or in many cases even know that they are actually victims, potentially, of domestic violence. Now, Lee has got great experience working in this industry. He's helped many victims in his job previously, and also so has Josh. Now, Lee wrote the book and got Josh involved as the editor because he's never written a book before, and well, another opinion is always good. The book is called Break the Silence, and it is available in a paperback or on your Kindle from Amazon. But they popped into the studio earlier just to have a big old juicy conversation about the subject and what is in the book. Lee and Josh, a warm welcome to the studio. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
Nice to see you. Now, Lee, we're here to talk about your book.
Yes.
Break the Silence.
Yes.
Okay, dramatic title, dramatic subject.
Absolutely.
Is it your first book?
It is my first book, yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's yeah, we've had some good feedback so far from people that have read it, but it's a subject, certainly when you're talking about male victims of domestic abuse, which is what it's all about. It's something I've been quite passionate about for some time since I worked within the industry. I still have bits and pieces to do with it. I thought for a while, what can I do with this? What can I do with all this information that I have?
Okay.
Because a lot of people used to say to me, but there's nothing out there for men. But there is. There's lots out there for men, but it's just not very well publicised. So I wanted to do something a little bit different. And sort of on the back of, I don't know whether you may have seen it yourself, the Abused by My Girlfriend programme that was on the BBC. On the back of that and seeing that, I actually got quite emotional watching that and some of the stuff that Alex went through on that. And it was kind of off the back of that, it was like, right, I need to do something. And I just started putting pen to paper and writing it all out. And it all came out. It happened so quickly. Are
you a writer? Or did you have to kind of get in the mode and try hard?
I'm not a writer.
Well, you weren't.
Well, yeah,
now.
I am now. But I found it quite easy because it's something that I'm so passionate about and I've been so involved in that when it started coming out and I started talking about different experiences the people that I worked with had, I found it came quite quickly and quite easily.
Okay, so it's written like a documentary, this book, or is it written as a self-help guide? Or is it a story? How does it actually unfold?
It's more of a self-help guide.
Okay.
Because
but with case studies. And examples.
Yeah, it's giving examples for people. Because one of the things that we've sort of thought about and we've come across quite a lot, certainly when you work with males, is that men don't see some of the behaviours they face as abuse. So, for an example, I used to run a group programme a few years ago called Rejuvenate, which was a 12-week programme for male victims of abuse. And one of the things we used to do there, we used to talk to the men about some of the experience they have, but we used to give them a male version of the power and control wheel and say, just have a look at this. And it breaks it down into lots of different categories like physical abuse, emotional abuse, using children. And it gives lots of different examples of behaviours that can be seen from a perpetrator. And we used to say to the men, just take your time, tick off anything on there that you've had yourself, that you've experienced. And you could physically see these men becoming very emotional and a lot of them crying within the room because they were ticking off practically everything that was down on there as things that they'd experienced, yet they'd never considered it to be.
It was domestic abuse.
Yeah. So that was the big thing for us, is firstly raising awareness of what it is. So men can see clearly what it is, and then breaking it down, wasn't it? And looking at all the different tactics and behaviours that can be seen from physical, emotional. We've got stuff about using children and using some of the experiences that other men have had to try and raise awareness and make people see that this is actually real, but you're not alone.
Absolutely. I mean, I think not being the only one has got to be a big step in the journey towards trying to tackle this and overcome it. Using children, it's about the mothers sometimes keeping their children away from the fathers.
Not just in that sort of context, because a lot of the men that we used to have that I used to work quite close with, a lot of them came into us around issues with the children. It's not just not allowing contact. It's the abuse that can be suffered at handovers for children. That was very, very common. Just to give you one example that I think we've talked about in the book, one gentleman used to drop his children off at a designated spot that his ex-partner, who was his perpetrator, chose. She used to block the entrance and exit off with her car and give him a barrage of abuse before handing his child over and leaving. And this is something he had to put up with every week without fail, and always in front of his children as well.
Some very harrowing stories within Lee's book, Break the Silence. And you can have a look at all the details online as well, because he has actually got a website. And this could end up leading to more, actually, to, you know, a bigger help group. This is something that Lee and Josh are potentially working on.